Shalom Aleichem, it's Monday afternoon, it's Chesmar Cheshvan, and I'm teaching you the second part of the Mamer. Ki Kaasher HaShamayim HaChadashim והקדשות אשר אני עושה, כן יעמוד זרעכם ושמכם, which the Rabbi said, Shabbos Rosh Chodesh Mar Cheshvan, 50 years ago, Tavshan Lamed Daled. And I'm not pushing an envelope, I'm pushing the pushed envelope. I'm making something up. I'm making something up. I believe it's Pshat and Mamer. But obviously, if you want to say that I'm reading too much into it, you're able to, and I would agree with you. But I've chosen to present the Mamer this way, and if I'm wrong, so then you'll underlearn it. You'll take away what I'm adding. Okay? And I divide it up into two parts, even though I don't expect this class to be particularly long, but it just makes sense to me to do it in two parts. So let me set the stage for you, okay? We have a Mamer. Ki Kaasher HaShamayim HaChadashim והקדשות אשר אני עושה, כן יעמוד זרעכם ושמכם. It's the end of the Sefer Yeshaya, one of the last psukim. Just like the Eibush is going to have a new heaven and a new earth, Cain, similarly, your seed and your name is going to remain. Only the Jewish people, the Zer of Yidden and the Shem of Yidden is going to be also the Yossi Lavi. This is what the pasuk is saying. So the Rebbe says that this Kaasher HaShamayim HaChadashim at the end of the Haftarah is consistent with Hashemayim Kisiv Aretz Adam Ragli at the beginning of the Haftarah. The Haftarah begins with Shemayim and Aretz and compares it to a kisei and a hadayim, a kisei and a shrafraf, a seat and a footstool. So when it says at the end of the Haftarah there's going to be a Shemayim HaChadashim and Aretz HaChadashim, means the same idea that when Mashiach is going to come, there's still going to be a phenomena of a seat, there's still going to be a number of a footstool, but it's going to be in a madriga called Chodesh. So of course the Mamer asks, what does it mean Hashem has a seat? What does it mean Hashem has a footstool? And basically the Mamer explains, this of course is based on Torah and the beginning of Bereshit. Godliness is brought down into the world, that's the seat. The world is lifted up, that's the footstool. Or as the Rebbe said in this Mamer, God is brought down so that it shouldn't go away to bad places. And the world is raised up, so the Chayes of the Kish, so Ribit Tzimtzum should not go to bad places. So the Shamayim and the Aretz being a kisei and a shrafraf, a seat and a footstool, are a metaphor for the meaning of godliness and worldliness in general, and the meaning of godliness and worldliness in a constructive way. And then he said that just like you have Shamayim and Aretz, which is about godliness being brought down in a kosher way, in a safe way, and protected, and so on, there's Shamayim and Aretz in Torah, there's Shamayim and Aretz in Neshamos Yisrael, and the Shamayim and Aretz in Mitzvos, in Tzivuyim, as he calls it. And then the end of the Mamer says that just like when the Eibush creates the world, there is a metaphysical, there's a mystical idea of heaven and earth, which is bringing godliness down and worldliness up, as it is in Torah, as it is in Neshamos Yisrael, as it is in Mitzvos. When Mashiach comes, there's also going to be a heaven and an earth, a seat and a footstool, serving a similar role, protecting the Chayes Elokei from going l'makom she'ein roi, which we can question the need for that. L'asad love, the Rebbe doesn't say it explicitly. But to bring Torah down and to raise the world up through Torah, to bring mitzvahs down and to raise the world through mitzvahs, and l'chayra to bring Yidden down and to raise Yidden up through above the world. That's the pasuk Shemayim HaChadashim v'Aretz HaChadashim. Here's the problem. The problem is, according to this Mamer, there is a heaven and earth now, there's going to be a heaven and earth Yossi Lavi. The heaven and earth now includes many models, including Torah, Yidden, and Mitzvahs. And Yossi Lavi, there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth. Presumably it also includes all of those same models, Torah, Yidden, and Mitzvahs. So here comes the question. What is the meaning of the words, Kein Yamid Zra'chem V'Shemchem? What does it mean that after Mashiach comes, there's going to be the Zer of Yidden and the Shem of Yidden? If Shemayim Chadashim, Aretz Chadashim is the parallel of the Hashemayim Kisiv Aretz Adam Ragli, which includes also the Neshamos Yisrael, Torah, Neshamos Yisrael, and Mitzvah. So each one has a Shemayim, each one has a Aretz, Torah Shebeksav, Torah Shebapeh, Yisrael, Yankiv, and so forth. So Asad Lavi, the Shemayim Chadashim and the Aretz Chadashim also includes two Torahs, two levels of Neshamos Yisrael, two levels of Mitzvah. So what is the Kein Yam Zra'chem V'Shemchem? Now, I'm not sure, but I am going to build this second shiur on these two lines. If you look on page 37, the end of the first paragraph, the Rebbe says the following, and in your text, if you're following with me, there's the number 19 on the margin. Omnam, however, Yisrael him lamala yesim etad. There's another idea of Yidden, a second idea. An idea, in addition to the idea of Yidden, which he spoke earlier on that same page, that Yisrael and Yankiv is Shamayim and Aretz, just like Teresh B'Ksav and Teresh B'Peh is Shamayim and Aretz. There's another concept. That is how Yidden are higher than the Torah. Like it says in the Medrash, Machshavtan Sheyisrael Kadma L'Chol David, the thought of the Torah precedes everything. For and the proof is that it says in the Torah itself, Shatera Atzma Oimeres, the Torah itself says, Daber al Bnei Yisrael, Tzavaz Bnei Yisrael, the Torah says to speak to the Jewish people and command the Jewish people. So the Medrash says, Harei, this proves, Shamashafta and Sheyisrael, Kadma L'Chol David, the thought of the Jewish people comes for everything. And of course, you know that this is the Tanit V'Eliyahu Rabbah. And when the Rebbe would say this Mamer Chazal with Gvaldik Esrakshos, he would say with great excitement, Oimer Ani, Eliyahu HaNov, who is both a Neshama and a Malach, says, Amani, Ich Zog, Machshavtan Sheyisrael, Kadma L'Chol David, the thought of the Jewish people precedes everything. I feel the Machshav as a Torah. And the way I'm understanding it is this. In Elam Hazard, there's a Shamayim Kisi and Arsa Demragli, which includes Torah, Mitzvos, Neshamos, Yisrael. HaShamayim HaChadashim, B'Oros HaChadosh Elosad Lavi includes Torah, Mitzvos, Neshamos, Yisrael. But then there's another thing. There's Neshamos Yisrael as they're in the scheme of Torah and Mitzvos. And there's Neshamos Yisrael, which is before Torah and Mitzvos. And to use the cliche that you all know that it says in the Zayah, and it's brought in Chassidus, that Tlas, Kishon, Skashon, Dabadad, there are three knots that are tied to one another. Yisrael is Kashrain Be'eraisa, the Yidden are connected to the Torah. Be'eraisa B'Kochabrichu, and Torah is connected to Hashem. And Yidden are connected to Hashem through the Torah, which means that Yidden are lower than Torah, which is lower than Kochabrichu. So the Kasha is asked, if Yidden are connected to the Torah and Torah is connected to Hashem, that's only two knots, it's not three knots. Why does the Zeir, which is quoted, say, Tlas, Kishon, Skashon, Dabadad, there are three knots that are tied to one another? And the answer is because it's like a recycling circle. There's a connection with Yidden and the Eibishter, which is above the Torah. And as you know from all the Maimarim, including the Sikh of Taldas Tavshin and Beis, that first a Yid connects to Hashem through the Torah, and then with the help of the Torah and Mitzvahs, the Yid reveals the Shadish of the Neshama of a Yid, which is even higher than the Torah and Mitzvahs, which helps him discover who he is. And then you have the concept of David, that a Yid is higher than the Torah. Fakir, the Yid connects Torah to the Eibush. We had this in the previous Mamer, I think, in the Mamer of and I'm thinking that that's the pshat in the words Kein Yam Zerachem ושמכם. HaShamayim HaChadashim, V'Aretz HaChadashim. The Rebbe says it's the same but different than HaShamayim Kisi V'Aretz HaDeim. It's the same because it has the same name, so it's the same basic idea. But obviously, it's happening on a much higher level. Yossi love it. Kein Yam Zerachem ושמכם means to say this idea that Machshavtan Sheyisrael Kadma L'Chol David Afil Machshav Zatera, the way Yidden are higher than everything, is also going to have a chiddush Yossi love, just like the Shamayim has a chiddush and the Aretz has a chiddush. The idea of Neshamos Yisrael, which are even higher than Torah, also has a yischachos. But just like we say about Shamayim and Aretz, that Shamayim and Aretz is going to be newly Yossi love, but it's still called the same thing. It's called Shamayim and it's called Aretz. And the Baal Shem Tov explains that Shmoy Ashayikal of Lashon HaKedesh reveals its essence. So even though it's going to be on a higher level, it's the same notion. The same is also true. The idea that Machshavtan Sheyisrael Kadma L'Chol David is going to be Yamei Zerachem v'Shemchem Yossi Lavi. And that's how I'm reading this Mamer, and that's how I'm understanding these two lines. Because to be very frank, if you don't agree with my interpretation, you can learn the whole rest of the Mamer without this one idea. But these two lines are not going to fit any place. On the other hand, if you agree with my really chiddush about the idea of Shamayim Chadosh, Meretz Chadosha, I believe it flushes out a new depth in how the Rebbe is explaining this pasuk. So I read the two lines. Now go back to the beginning of the Mamer, the first page 35, and read number 20, which is 5 lines into the Mamer. And I'm teaching this to you like a separate shiur, right? There's the Mamer on HaShamayim HaChadashim, which also includes Neshamos Yisrael, as they're part of the scheme in Torah and Mitzvos. Now I'm giving you another class, which is on the second part of the pasuk. Then the pasuk at the end of the Haftarah, which we say on Reish Chedesh, which is the last Perek of Sefer Yeshaya. Then it began with the pasuk Kaasher HaShamayim HaChadashim and then it says, just like there's a new Shamayim and there's a new Audit, similarly you will be the sustaining of the Zera of Yidden and the Shem of Yidden. The Koi, it's a reference to the fact that it said earlier, Kaasher HaShamayim HaChadashim, we know that lots of is going to be a new Shamayim. And we know that lots of there's going to be new audits. Asher ani oisiv a game which the Eibush is going to a Mashiach comes the Yossi Lavei. The Mizavuvan Shezav Chidish Gadol. It's already a great novelty that there's going to be a new Shamayim and there's going to be a new audits. And if you learned this Mamer, part of the Chiddush is going to be that not only is going to be a new Shamayim and new audits, but that even though it's a new Shamayim and a new audits, it's called by the same names, but then there's another idea. The pasuk has to say in addition, Shakain, just like there's a new Shamayim and a new Aretz, and it's still called by the same name, Shamayim and Aretz. Same is also true. Ya'amod, zra'chem, ושמכם, our zera, our planting seeds, which means our children, simply speaking, and our name will also be l'asad lavi. And again, the way you have to read it is that there's going to be a new name for Yidden, a new zriya for Yidden, but it's going to have the same name. We're going to have the same, there's going to be a Zera Chodesh and a Shem Chodesh, and it's all going to be Zra'chem ושמכם. Just like there's a new heaven and a new earth, but it's called Shamayim and Aretz. We're going to have a new Zera and a new Shem, but then it's called Zra'chem ושמכם. V'asher hu b'zeh b'eifin dekain, just like Shamayim HaChadashim, Eretz HaChadash, are these two components. A, they're new. B, they have the same name as HaShamayim Kisiv Eretz Adei Meraglei now. Similarly, Zra'chem ושמכם, on the one hand they're going to be newly Yossi Lavi, on the other hand they're going to have the same name. Now I want you to know, and I told this in the beginning of the last class, that usually when you learn this pasuk, the way the pasuk is read is Yossi Lavi, there's going to be a new Shamayim, a new Aretz, but not a new Yidden. There's going to be the same Zed and the same Shem. But this Mamer says both things about Shamayim, Chadashim, and Chadash itself. And on the one hand it's going to be a new Shamayim, a new Aretz, at the same time it's the same name. And the same is true also here when he speaks about Zra'chem ושמכם, it's going to be a new Zra'chem and a new Shimchem, but nevertheless it's going to be Zra'chem and Shimchem is going to be the same thing. And the thing which is irking is that L'choira HaShamayim Kisi Aretz Adei Meraglei also includes Neshamos Yisrael, because there's two madregas in Torah, Shamayim and Aretz, there's two madregas in Mitzvos, Shamayim and Aretz, and two madregas in Neshamos Yisrael, Shamayim and Aretz. So what's the Kain Ya'amod Zra'chem ושמכם? So the only way I was able to explain it to myself is that this is talking about the other idea in Yidden. The idea in Yidden that are above Torah and Mitzvos and Neshamos Yisrael. The idea of Machshavta and Yisrael, Kodma l'chol davar. The connection between Yidden and the Eibishter. On a level which is before and higher than Torah and Mitzvos, that on that level also there's going to be a Chiddush in Neshamos Yisrael, a new Zera, a new Shem, but they're still going to have the same names. But it's also understood, even though the idea that after Mashiach comes, the madreg of Yidden, which is called Machshavta and Yisrael, Kodma l'chol davar, is going to have a newness, a chiddush. Nevertheless, we say, Kain Ya'amod Zra'chem ושמכם, in spite of the fact that it's going to be renewed, it's going to have the same name. And it makes a little bit of sense. Asher Kain Ya'amod Zra'chem ושמכם, the reason, even though there's going to be a new Zera, a new Shem to Klal Yisrael, on the madrega of Machshavta and Yisrael, Kodma l'chol davar, nevertheless, just like Kaasher HaShamayim HaChadashim, there's going to be a new Shamayim and a new Aretz, but nevertheless, it's going to have the same name. The same is true about Zra'chem ושמכם. Although this word, Kain Ya'amod Zra'chem ושמכם, correlating to Shamayim Chadashim and Eretz Chadashim, to Zra'chem ושמכם, is very novel. There'd be an argument that said that wouldn't be the case. The Omer Razal says in Medrash Bereishis, Beis Reishis, two things are first. בשביל Teresh Nekras Reishis, Darkei Teresh is called Reishis. Or B'shvil, you saw that it called Reishis to Yossi, Bereishis, Badalakim, Shamayim, Aretz. The Eibush declared wrote to Beis Reishis. Omizeh move, which indicates Bepashtos the Shayach Lamer, Al Brias HaShamayim v'Aretz, halazu, about the current Shemayim and Aretz, which were created for Torah and Neshamos Yisrael, you could say, ya'mod zra'chem ושמכם, since the Eibishter created Shemayim and Aretz as we know today, for בשביל Yisrael, בשביל Torah, it makes sense that doesn't change. But if there's a Shemayim Chadashim and Aretz Chadasha, how do you know that there's a new Zera and Shem? The new Zera and Shem has the same name. Now, based on the Mamer that we learned, the Rebbe already explained that Hashemayim HaChadashim, Eretz Chadasha, Shani Eiseh has to do with Torah and Neshamos and Mitzvos. That L'asad Laveh, they'll still be there and they'll have the same name, but the idea of Machshavtan Sheyesel, Kadma L'chal Davar, which is above it, for sure regarding that idea, even if that's included in the Beis Reishis, should not necessarily be included in the Shemayim HaChadashim and the Aretz HaChadashim. Omnam L'gabe, Shemayim HaChadashim, Aretz HaChadashim, L'yas L'avashia, comes as a new Shemayim, there's new Aretz. Who says that there's Beis Reishis in that Shemayim Aretz HaChadashim? And even if you're going to say that there is Beis Reishis, but that's Torah and Neshamos Yisrael, which was explained earlier in the Mamer, that are connected to Shemayim and Eretz. The idea of Machshavtan Sheyesol Kadma Chadav, which is how the Neshamos Yisrael are higher even than Torah, how do we know that idea is also going to be L'asad Laveh, new, but with the same name, just like Shemayim Chadashim and Aretz Chadashim, Eich Shayach Leime Kein Ya'mod zra'chem ושמכם, just like L'asad Laveh, there's a new Shemayim and new Aretz on the one hand, but it's still called Shemayim and still called Aretz. Same is true. Neshamos Yisrael, even on the Madrege of Machshavtan Sheyesol Kadma L'chol Davar, on the one hand we say they're Chiddush, Ya'mod zra'chem v'chiddush, Meshichem is a new Zera and a new Shem, but nevertheless it has the same name. And in Mikoma comes to claim, but the fact still is, Shesh B'zah Azbara, the explanation is, even though there's a new heaven and there's a new earth, but the new heaven and the new earth carry the same name as the old heaven and the old earth, and accordingly, Yidden, even in the Madrege which is above Shemayim and Eretz, even Yidden in the Madrege of Machshavtan Sheyesol Kadma L'chol Davar, are still going to be this. They're going to be newly Asad Laveh, but new in the kind of way that they have the same name. But Tzadok Lav and Ma'is Bara. What does this mean? So where am I out on a limb? Where am I creating something which is not in the Mamer? That when he says Shemayim and Eretz, and he explains that Shemayim and Eretz includes Neshamos Yisrael Bizman Hazeh, and then he says Shemayim Chadash and Eretz Chadash Al Asad Laveh, Shemayim Chadashim and Eretz Chadash Al Asad Laveh, that also includes Neshamos Yisrael. But that includes Neshamos Yisrael, which is a part of the Beis Reishis, which is Yisrael Torah. The Kein Ya'mod zra'chem v'shemchem is the Neshamos Yisrael, which are higher than Torah, and l'chayra higher than the Beis Reishis. And even the Madreg of Neshamos Yisrael, which Machshavtan Sheyesol Kadma L'chol Davar, it's included in the idea that even though L'asad Laveh, everything is new, it has a relationship to what we have now. That's what I'm proposing, a pshat in the Mamer, and I'm hanging by a thread. I'm admitting, I don't have a very good argument, but like I said, if you don't follow the logic that I'm proposing, which I would agree, which I would understand, you will not be able to explain the last two lines of the first paragraph on page 19. So now that we read page 35, number 20, go to the very bottom, page 37, number 21. The same is true about Neshamos Yisrael, but I want to make a point. Not Neshamos Yisrael that are part of Shemayim and Aretz, which you called before Yisrael and Yankiv. We're talking about Neshamos Yisrael that are Machshavtan Sheyesol Kadma L'chol Davar, Afil Machshavtan Torah, which is a whole higher level of Neshamos Yisrael. That those levels of Neshamos Yisrael are going to have a Chiddush Asad Laveh, but at the same time, Till Asad Laveh Yihiyu Neshamas, they're going to be souls. Shehein Lamaylim and Neshamas the Achshav above the Neshamas of now. And the Rebbe goes into a conversation which I know very little about, and it's very, very intriguing to me, and I don't know how to explore this, and I'm afraid I don't have the time. The idea of Neshamas Chadashis, new Neshamas. There's a lot of levels in Neshamas Chadashis. The highest level of Neshamos Chadashah, as you'll see in the next few lines, in Neshama Chadashah, which is not included in Adam Rishon. Adam Rishon, Bachshava, Agdum, and Adam Kadma. And when you say, for example, about the Alter Rebbe, there is a Neshama Chadashah, and the Neshamas Chadashahs almost never come into the world. Once in 2,000 years, that means a Neshama Chadashah on the highest Madrege, which is higher even than the Neshamas of Adam Rishon and Chava. And these kinds of Neshamas Chadashahs are going to be L'Asad Laveh, and even though they're so new, they're still called Yisrael. Even though it says in Kabbalah that Oines Tamid Chachamim alone is Mamshech L'Shamas Chadashis. And if you look at footnote 33, he's a Messiah to Gemara and Ksubis, but that's Mustama just the halacha part. It says in Kabbalah and Chassidus, the concept of a new neshama yeshkama daggers is a bunch of levels. The highest level of the phenomenon of a new neshama is that laos that love a new neshama is chadashis mamish in souls that are so new. What is the meaning of so new? Shlei nichlalu afilu benishmas adam erisha. They're not even included in the neshama of adam erisha. And that's the pshat. Ki Kaasher HaShamayim HaChadashim. Mashiach is going to come. There's going to be a new shamayim. On the one hand, it's new. On the other hand, it's still called shamayim. V'aretz chadash is going to be new aretz. And on the one hand, it's new. On the other hand, it's called aretz. Asher ani esav shteivish is going to create. Ken ya'amod zra'chem ושמכם. The same is true. That Neshamos Yisrael. And that level of Neshamos Yisrael, which is not included in Shemayim Chadashim and Chadashim. But that in Neshamos Yisrael, which is the idea of Machshavtan Sheyisrael Kadma L'chol Davar, the Gam HaNeshamos Yu Az Neshamos Chadashis Mamish, when Mashiach comes, there's going to be Neshamos Chadashis Mamish, and the diak of Mamish is that they're brand new, even compared to the Neshamos that are included in Adam Marishan on the Madrega of Machshavtan Sheyisrael Kadma L'chol Davar, and nevertheless they're called Neshamos Yisrael. They're connected to us. They're connected to us. And I want to say a word. In other words, if I'm going out on a limb, I might as well dangle on that limb. One of the things which you have in the Maimorim, especially in the Maimorim of the Friedrich Rebbe, and we had it in one of the Maimorim of this Tishrei, I forgot which, is the notion that the Neshama is a Pnimi B'yetzim. That the Neshama's nature is that a Pnimi B'yetzim. I like to translate in English that the Neshama is a Pnimi B'yetzim. The Neshama is a deeply loyal creation. What that means to say is that only a small part of the Neshama comes into the guf, right? The Naran, the Nefesh Ruach and the Neshama goes into the guf, the Chaya Yechida does not go into the guf. Its relationship with the guf is called Makif HaKorev, Makif HaRochek, and then of course higher than Yechida we have even Yochid. But one of the ideas that Chassidus says about a neshama is you'll never have a neshama connected to two bodies. Because even if only a small part of the neshama is revealed in the guf, the remainder of the neshama is connected to the part of the neshama which is in the guf in such a way that it has no involvement with anything other than in that guf. And like I said, I like to call the neshama as a loyalty. It's a pnimi b'yetzim. And this pnimi b'yetzim is negay also an avoida for reasons that I can't get into. It explains and really, if you want to be honest about it, the deepest in Yonim what Chabad means, Pnimius. So along those lines, you can say the same thing here. Ken ya'amod zra'chem ושמכם. The highest level of a neshama is the Machshavtan Sheyisrael Kadma L'chol Davar Afilu L'Machshavtan Torah level, where you're just connected to Hashem higher than Torah. You're saying that in this itself, there's going to be a chiddush, just like there's a new shamayim, there's a new aretz, which includes also new neshamas on the level which is one with Torah and Mitzvos. There's also a newness on the level of the neshama which is called zra'chem ושמכם, the level of the neshama which is Machshavtan Sheyisrael Kadma L'chol Davar. But it's still called Neshamos Yisrael. It's so high, it's so much higher than what we have now. And nevertheless, it's Ken ya'amod zra'chem ושמכם, it's still your zed and your shame. And the logic is, with this idea, that the neshama is a pnimi b'yetzim, goes this much. That even when you get a chiddush in the neshama, in the madrege of Machshavtan Sheyisrael Kadma L'chol Davar, it has the same name as the Neshamos Yisrael have now. That's my way of sort of enlightening this chiddush, assuming the way I'm presenting it to you has any credibility. We're at the very bottom, page 38. Therefore, it's an extraordinarily novel idea that not only there's a new shamayim, not only there's a new aretz, but there's new Neshamos Yisrael. And we're speaking about which madreg in Neshamos Yisrael. The madreg in Neshamos Yisrael, which is hard and Torah, Mitzvos, Machshavtan Sheyisrael Kadma L'chol Davar. And L'osad Love, there's to be a chiddush even in this. We need the pause to tell you outright, explicitly, implicitly, and explicitly. The level of the neshama called Machshavtan Sheyisrael Kadma L'chol Davar is going to have a chiddush. And even though it's going to have a chiddush, it's going to have the same zera and the same shame that he has now. There still is an explanation. Just like we speak about Shemayim and Aretz, we say that there's some similarity in Shemayim and Aretz now. And them ain't vid dugma l'shmayim v'achadashim v'achadashim l'yasad love. They're similar to the Shaim and l'yasad love, which is why we say that the name doesn't change, even though it's a higher level. L'chei David Azeh, we say the same thing about Neshamos Yisrael, that even that madrega of Neshamos Yisrael, which is higher than Torah and Mitzvos, it also has a chiddush, and nevertheless, it's still ours. It's us. It's us. It's Yidden. The same Yidden we are now are going to have the advantage of a neshama chadash on a madrega of machshavta and sheisol kadma l'chol davar, which is really extraordinary, and it's still our essence. It's our yochid, it's our yechid, it's our chaya. And it is for this reason that I made a second class. I wanted to give the Kain Yamid Zerachem v'shemchem the attention that I think it deserves, based on how the Rebbe explains Kain Yamid Zerachem v'shemchem. That not as the same Yidden, vaket, it's new Yidden. And the newness of Yidden is higher than the newness of Shemaim and Aretz, and nevertheless it's called by the same name. And now the Rebbe is going to develop this in an avodah way, and he continues on top of page 39. When it says in the pasuk that L'asad Love, there's going to be a renewal to the madrega machshavta and sheisol kadma l'chol davar, which is higher than machshavas hatera, and nevertheless it's going to be called the same name. It says the Rebbe specifically Shemchem is Kabbalah Seil and Zra'chem is Torah and Mitzvos. Just like earlier in the Mamer, we spoke about El Ani Unechei Ruach V'chored Al Devarai. That Ani Unechei Ruach means the bittul to be mamshech atzmus and making the Eibishter a king. And V'chored Al Devarai, the way I explained it to you, means the kiyum and Torah and Mitzvos. And the way I taught it to you, Aseres Yemei Tshuva Tishrei is the bittul atzmi, which is mamshech atzmus. This is the El Ani Unechei Ruach. And then after Tishrei comes Mitzvos Maisias, like it's explained by Arichas in the Hemshech V'kocha, which keeps us for the entire year. So even the madrega of the neshama, which is machshavta and sheisol kadma l'chol davar, it's higher than Torah and Mitzvos, and it learns Torah and it does mitzvahs not to connect to Hashem. Faket, it learns Torah, does mitzvahs to connect to Torah, mitzvahs to the Eibishter. Specifically, there's two aspects to that also. The first aspect is shemchem, which is the Kabbalah Seil, which makes the Eibishter to a king, which is the parallel of the Al-Ani Unechei Ruach idea, which we had on the bottom of page 35 and the top of page 36. And then Zra'chem is Torah and Mitzvos. Like it says, Ziru Lechem Tzedakah, that mitzvahs are compared to zriyas, to planting seeds. So you have to think what this means. That L'asad Lavi, the level of the neshama, which is one with Hashem, which is above Torah and Mitzvos, is going to continue making the Eibishter into a melech. That's Shemchem. And it's going to keep learning Torah and doing mitzvahs. Now, keeping to make the Eibishter into a melech, l'chayda could mean bepashtus, that because you're one with the Eibishter, you can renew the Eibishter's melech. But the keeping Torah and mitzvahs now level is lishma, l'shem ha-Torah, l'shem ha-mitzvah. So it's learning Torah to connect the Torah to the Eibishter. It's doing mitzvahs to connect the mitzvahs to the Eibishter, because this neshama is higher than Torah and higher than mitzvahs, and when it learns Torah and it does mitzvahs, it's doing the Torah and the mitzvahs a favor. So the diak haloshen, shemchem and zra'chem. Shemchem is connected to Kabbalah Seil, and zra'chem is connected to Torah mitzvahs, is consistent with the idea that in making the Eibishter a king, there's these 2 points. Al-Ani Unechei Ruach, which is Kabbalah Seil, Klal Rosh Hashanah, and so forth. And Chorad Al-Devarim, which is Kiyum and Torah Mitzvahs, the whole year, L'asad Lavi, the level of the Neshama, which is higher than Torah Mitzvahs, is going to have the Yim Shemchem and have the Yim Zra'chem on that higher level. When we're learning Torah and doing mitzvahs just like we do now, but then it's going to be L'kasher Torah Shalmayim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, L'kasher Mitzvahs Shalmayim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is how we understand this line, that specifically in the idea of Neshamos Yisrael, which are higher Torah mitzvahs, there's 2 notions of Zera and Shema. The Rebbe explains what they are. But then the Rebbe goes off to talk about something else. However, although we just explained that is discussing Neshamos Yisrael and on the highest levels, on the highest level of Chiddush, and nevertheless it's the same thing, and so forth and so on, you shouldn't forget that there's the simple meaning of the Zra'chem v'shemchem, which is a far cry, which is completely removed from these lofty ideas of Shamayim Chadashim and Eretz Chadashim and Neshamos Yisrael Chadashim and this madreg. And that is that Shemchem Zra'chem is kipshutei begashmis. Down here in this world, you didn't have a name. And down here in this world, you didn't have planted seeds which have to grow and bring them profit begashmis or beruchnias. Shazehu. The idea of Zra'chem v'shemchem as it is lamata, which obviously is lower than Torah mitzvahs, L'chayr is even lower than Neshamos Yisrael. Because this is talking about Ma'as HaGuf to Yisrael. And the Guf level of a Yid, there's the inyan of Zera and Shem. And how do we explain this? That Asad Lavi, there's a new Shamayim, there's a new Aretz, and Yidden down here in this world have a new Guf. So he says, there's a Kabbalah Chassidus Paskin, and of course, this of course our Shita, like the Ramban, like the Rambam. The Tachas HaSchar v'Kabbalasi, the ultimate stage of reward, and the ultimate circumstance of receiving that reward is the Neshamos is beguf and davka, the soul is in the body, like the Rambam, not like the Rambam says in the Cheshuv Perik Ches. Then a bit Okamesh inyan Torah and Mitzvos, as Torah and Mitzvos are, right? The Neshamos beguf and davka, as we are in our physical bodies, we're going to receive the zra'chem ושמכם. Lashon chidush liyasad love. Okamesh is ba'yel as we discussed earlier in this Mamer. And Avur begins the Kedusha, it says in the Kedusha. In Kuntis Acharein, Indian Pelagod, he says something even more wondrous. Mashanasa b'shamayim imal, things happen in heaven, not just through our doing mitzvahs, but ayadei iyun abir Allah b'chulu, by determining Allah. But to the extent, like it says in the pasuk, chavedim makshivim l'kelech hashmi'ini shanei yishal yenim, that those who are above it goes on Neshamos Malach and Gan Eden aim bem keich lavar achol, they cannot bring clarity to the Torah. Ela tachteinu, but only us down here are able to do it. Lefi shem elabash and beguf, we're in a body v'chul. V'lachein boim yenim, which is why they come from the heavens. Lishmei yachedushe teirei matachteinu, to the novelties we introduce in Torah through our efforts in this world, which is the idea of chavedim makshivim l'kelech. This is also a part of the Kenyamin zra'chem v'shemchem. But this zra'chem v'shemchem is lower than Shemayim Kisin and Sadim Nagli. Right? It says we are Neshamos beguf. And we say, La'asad Lave, even though we're talking about the physical body of a Yid, there's going to be the inyan of Kenyan Jami Zerachem V'Shemchem. And the way it plays out is like a whole Hishtalshus needs us Kvayah. So the Rebbe says, U'me'achar, it's by the number 24. U'me'achar shepeil imzeh, ayadei ma'aseinu v'avadeseinu da'achshav. The work we do now not only gets us the Shamayim HaChadashim, the Eretz HaChadashim, which includes Torah and Neshamos, the Mitzvos, on the first level, but also the idea of Zra'chem v'Shemchem, which according to my interpretation is speaking about Neshamos Yisrael, which is Machshavtan Shal Yisrael, and in that itself there's a Eschachos Kein Ya'amid Zra'chem v'Shemchem that we earned, as the Rebbe said on page 38, B'derech Asar Shlim, not B'derech Isarusad Tata Isarusad Leila. The notion of the new Neshamos L'Asad Lavi Kein Ya'amid Zra'chem v'Shemchem is a greater wonder. Me'ha'indin ki meitzeis Chamei Eretz Mitzrayim, and the Mashiach is going to come. There's going to be many wonders, and the wonders are considered in the flies, the Gabed in the flies of Yetzias Mitzrayim. The wonder of us having in the level of the Neshama, which is this high, a new Neshama, and it's still identifying with us, and even a bigger pel. Everything that's going to be revealed then is based on now. And that includes also that in the flies. So the Neshama we're going to have then is going to be even a greater pella than those wonders. Now, I don't know exactly how you read that, but let's continue to go. The person says, me, what did I do? What could I do? How can a human being in our generation say that I deserve the Gila Mashiach B'chlal, and the Shamayim Chadashim, Eretz Chadashim B'frat, and the Ya'amid Zra'chem v'Shemchem B'prati Prati? So the Rebbe gives a funny answer. The answer is, Simcha Shal Mitzvah, there's the joy of mitzvahs. And I would like to add that the Rebbe Nesiches adds something called Simcha V'Ta'arasa, which is even higher than Simcha Shal Mitzvah. Says the Rebbe Simcha Peretz, this joy breaches all barriers. Va'ad, until Shazed, that the joy itself, Paltiel in the Makache Shmech, we're bringing a holiness into the Eibishter's name. That no matter how great the Eibishter's name is, like we learned in the Mamer before this one, the name of the Eibishter which is higher than Eid Ein Seif, as opposed to the name of the Eibishter which is lower than Ein Seif, which was discussed in the Mamer V'Lakachtam Lechem. But on the previous Mamer, the Mamer of Shabbos Bereishis, the Rebbe explained L'Eis Nefloz V'El Savade. The Yidden Makadosh, the name of the Eibishter, which is higher than Eid, through Simcha or Kameshin is as explained in the previous Mamer, Shimcha Kodesh Mi'ata Kodesh, into Shimcha Kodesh, not into Neder Shmecha, but the Shimcha Kodesh Mi'ata Kodesh goes on Atzmusei Mamish, Ubenusach HaMemorim, in the language Memorim of Tisha Tavshin Dalet, and the Samachet, Shemamshichim Ras Namuchot, we bring down Ras Namuchot, and even higher Kiv, and Sheyesol Mushra Shal Maylim Ras Namuchot, yet no harder than Ras Namuchot. We're able to touch that place and bring that place forward, and first of all, it affects in us. Zra'chem v'Shemchem should be b'derech Chiddush, and second of all, it affects in our guf, in this world, the zra'כם ושמכם should be b'derech Kiddush. וממשיך, to bring it into this world, to affect the creation of the home for the Eibush Shel Yossi Lavi in the lowest world. Like it says in the Mamer and Basilagani Acheitzikala, that Ike Shechina v'tachtenim hoisa, that in the beginning of creation Ike Shechina v'tachtenim hoisa. Or come again li'achas a year Basilagani b'matan was again Basilagani, or Mashiach comes, it's going to be on a higher level. And all of this is in the pasuk HaShamayim HaChadashim v'Haradashim v'Sharani Eisek Ken Yamid Zra'כם ושמכם. So what did the Rebbe add in this paragraph? The idea that Zra'כם ושמכם is higher than Shemayim and Aretz, and the idea that Zra'כם ושמכם is lower than Shemayim and Aretz, because Zra'כם ושמכם is connected to the Yiddish Guf, and it's almost as if you're saying there's Zra'כם ושמכם which is higher than Shemayim Chadashim and Chadashim. It comes down into Zra'כם ושמכם, which is lower than Shemayim v'Aretz, to make a diddle le'izbarach b'tachtenim, and it's considered a bigger pella than Aren and Neflois. Now the one thing I want to add is that in many Maimarim, when they talk about Simcha, they say that the Gili HaAtzmos is through mitzvahs, and the Simcha is only Magala Atzmos. Here the implication is that the Simcha itself is Magala Atzmos. And now the Rebbe says something completely radical, and I don't know what his source is. There's only, in the next 6 lines, which is the end of the Maimon, I'm holding by the number 27, there's only one footnote, which is for a pasuk in Amos. Aside from that, everything the Rebbe says going forward has no source. And it's mamish unbelievable. V'zehu, and this idea of Ya'amid Zra'כם ושמכם, which is higher than Shemayim HaChadashim and Eretz Chadashim, which means that there's a Chiddush and Neshamos Yisrael, which are higher than Torah and Mitzvos. But that this Chiddush and Neshamos Yisrael, which are higher than Torah and Mitzvos, comes down, Dafka B'Gashmiyas, explains the following. Shal Yossi Love, when Mashiach is going to come, Yirag B'chinas Shei, the B'chinas Ratzah. When Mashiach comes, there's no shuv, there's no ratzah, just shuv. You're never running away from the Gashmi of the world. To correct the ruchnias, there's only shuv. The sins of the Gilead Musi Yisbarach, the revelation of Eibush himself. And it's going to be lamata, as per Ya'amid Zra'כם ושמכם ונשama b'guf. Therefore, there's going to be a bringing of godliness down, and no notion of bringing godliness up. And that's the pshat naflo le'teisef kum lemal yusuf. It falls and doesn't get up as a favorable thing. It's going to be dafka lamata. I want you to understand what that means. Ratzei v'shev is a sign of life. Motiv v'lemoti is a sign of life. All the Maimarim, they speak with Ratzei v'shev. It's in many places in Chassidus, of course, including in Maimarim of Shavuos and after Shavuos, Pariches and Tofresh Ayin Hey and Hamshich Ayin Beis on the Sug of Yom and Laila. There's also Ratzei v'shev in, I think in Ayin Zayin, Pesach Dikamayim Midachzech Tzeneren or something like that. You have a Ratzei v'shev, and there's also a single Maimon Matzazu someplace which also speaks about din of Ratzei v'shev. No Ratzei v'shev is no life. The only living thing that has no Ratzei v'shev is the Eibishter himself. Anything which is connected to the Eibishter lives because of Tenuah. It goes into the Guf to give life and it goes back to the Eibishter to renew it. The idea that Neshamos Yisrael b'guf in the madreg of Kein Ya'amid Zra'כם ושמכם have a shuva, no Ratzei means that there's no Tenuah. And no Tenuah means either they're not alive or that they're one with the Eibishter mamish. And that's what the Rebbe is describing. That the Kein Ya'amid Zra'כם ושמכם Lasad Lavi, which is higher than the Shemayim HaChadashim and Eretz Chadashim on the one hand, and it comes down by Gashmias in the Guf on the other hand, which is connected to Asiyas Dira Le'ezlarach B'tachtenim, is the Shuvah L'Aratzah, one with the Eibishter. V'zehu, and this is the Pshat, Shaydei, Ha'achon, of the Torah and Mitzvos. The preparation is learning Torah and doing Mitzvos, and doing them b'simcha. The Simcha is paid together. How does the paid is called like a dam breaches through all the barriers, until B'yas Mashiach said, Keinu, Yaviv Yigaleinu, Yelechenu Kamiyas, Yelechenu Begula, Amidas Bashleim, take up from Miyad Mamish. Sure, it says, Bekod of Mamish, but in the years that I grew up, the Rebbe was saying, take up Miyad Mamish. So now I gave a second shiur and built it around 2 lines in the Mamer which seem lost. And when you learn the end of the Mamer, you come away with the Ken Ya'amid Zra'כם ושמכם being higher than Shemayim HaChadashim, Eretz Chadashim on the one hand. On the other hand, it comes down to Gashmias, to the point where you're so one with the Eibishter that you're dealing with the Shuvah L'Aratzah. Do I know if what I said is true? Do I know if I understood the Maimon correctly? I don't have a clue. But I put it out there. Yeah, and if I'm wrong, and certainly if you think I'm wrong, I'm sure you'll be very happy to let me know, and I'll be happy to hear. Now, the next Maimon from Toshin Lamadal, the Shabbos V'Chem Kislev. This is Reish Chodesh Iyar, So today is Ches Cheshvan. So we have a couple of weeks till we have the next Mamer Tafshel Lamed Dalet. So I don't make any promises. I really don't make any promises. But I want to do at least a few extra Maimorim based on the commitment we made during the campaign. So the next Maimor, which I've already prepared, which I'm going to teach Friday. Today's Monday, so I have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to do other things. It's been a very long time since I had time for anything except Maimorim. It's going to be Shema Yisrael Tov Shin Tezvov, which is based on the Maimor Tafashayin Aleph. Very interesting Maimor, begin the Yishtem Bay. And V'niske v'nichye v'nere, we want Mashiach now. The Eibush soll hieten Yidden in the ganze Welt. The Eibush hieten Eretz Yisrael. Muss kommen daheim gesunde Heit. Beguf Bari und Neshama Bari, gesund in Kopf und gesund in Guf und gesund in Neshama und gesund in Gashmis und gesund in Ruchnis. Und Mashiach soll kommen bepeil Mamish. V'esruach atoma av ben Arz, yitamu chatoim v'lei chetem. B'mheira b'yomeinu Mamish, Mamish, or b'agola didam bepeil Mamish. L'chaim.